We said we'd start, so to honor everybody's time here, can you hear me if I'm just speaking like this? You in the back that I can't see you because I'm not wearing my glasses?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just keep going like that if that's all right, and I'm not going to be the one doing most of the speaking. So I wanted to welcome you. As you know, that it's really important to have this community involvement, and you guys have stepped up, so thank you for showing up. Hopefully we can, let the word get out in the community, what you've heard, what you've seen, and also follow the feedback to Mark Somerville or any of our board members about what you think. We're going to be meeting tomorrow morning at 9. We need to hear your comments. We're trying to be as transparent and as inclusive as we can in this process. Your voice counts. We're getting to get to know these folks here, and it's an honor and a privilege to be able to have this interaction. When we are asking for their comments, hopefully they know the best way to answer a question is from the heart, because really that's what we're trying to get to. We're getting to know these folks and see where what their vision is for this school. So I'll turn it over to Katrina, and I think she's going to talk about the rest of the process with the search.
All right, so good evening. I just wanted to point out the board members who are here in the room. We have Heidi Jacobson back in the corner. She's been handing out the comment cards and the question cards. You have Becky Schwanke. You have Mark Somerville. Hannah Benson is out in the front. Bertie wasn't able to attend tonight. But if you come up with questions during the forum, please raise your hand, and Heidi or one of the other board members will bring you a comment sheet and bring it up here so that we can include it. Okay, we have officially, if we give 5 minutes, we're scheduled for 5 minutes per candidate per question. So that would be a total of 8 questions. We may have more time, but we should have at least that much time. And we'll try to incorporate as many questions as possible. With the questions, if there's a theme and it's already been asked, I won't re-ask the question, but we'll try to compile them. The candidates are going to introduce themselves. They each have 3 minutes to do so. You'll see that when I hand these up, these are just time sheets for the candidates. We are asking the questions and doing the introductions alphabetically. So Teresa LaVille is first, and then Carla Marquand. Marquand?
Yes.
Marquand is second. And we should wrap up about 7:45. And then each candidate has 3 minutes to give some final thoughts. And do you have any questions about our process tonight? Once we're finished tonight, we're going to compile all the comments that you may submit tonight. We're going to do that compilation. Tomorrow we have second interviews with each candidate in the morning, and then we have a special meeting scheduled. So if we have time or the board is comfortable, we may choose a candidate tomorrow, or we may hold off since one of our board members isn't here tonight. She may want to watch the forum before we're able to make a decision. So just to let you know. But those are the next steps. Okay, so we're going to start with candidate introductions with Teresa LaVille.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity, and it's nice to see everyone here. I first want to begin by talking a little bit about my background. So I have been in education for 29 years, 16 years as a teacher, and of those 16 years, I got to experience what teaching really was about, but moving to Savunga, I learned to be a teacher. Savunga on St. Lawrence Island, that's where I began my first experience of Alaska, a place I fell in love with. Very rural, couldn't ask for anything else. Immediately, I was surrounded by the community. Immediately, I got involved with the community because of just the passion, the love that they had for me and I had for them. As an educator, after being in Savunga, I then left for about a couple years, and I came back to Alaska because I felt I wasn't finished with it, and it definitely wasn't finished with me. Because of my experience here in Alaska, I became the educator that I am. I fight for kids. I fight for each and every student that comes through my door or passes through by. And so as an educator, I had the opportunity to work in the district office where I traveled to different villages. So I worked for Bering Strait School District for 10 years as first an itinerant teacher trainer, and then as a ELA, English Language Arts facilitator. And I traveled by plane every week to every village. I loved it. Again, being submerged in the culture, getting to know the people, spending time with the people, and of course, making sure learning was taking place. After my experience there, I then moved to Dillingham, another rural community. And if you're calculating, it's about 14 years I've been in rural villages. And in Dillingham, I became an assistant principal, and I became a principal. Again, same thing. My passion was to ensure that every student got the education they deserved. Not just a basic, ordinary education, but a great education. Now I am here as an assistant superintendent. The opportunity of working with the leadership team, by the way, who is amazing, and working with the staff, who is also amazing. I fell in love with this community. The people, being out and about, being invited to events. I had the opportunity to be a part of this place that is not only beautiful, but welcoming, loving, the Christian community. And those of you who know me definitely know that's a strong part of me. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Carla Marquand. I'd like to acknowledge the board members that are here and participating in this process to really find the next best leader and candidate for the superintendent position for your school district. The warm reception that I've felt since preparing for the journey has just been so welcoming and lovely, and I think that it speaks to the unique and special place that this area has, not only to all of you, but I know I've felt it visiting every year. Thank you for that opportunity and warm reception. I did receive a copy of the candidate introduction email that many of you have had the opportunity to read, and I'd like to use my time just to tell you a little bit more about myself. As a child, I always loved being outside, climbing trees, riding horses along the winding forest trails of New England. But there's one book and one TV series that I've read and seen every episode over and over again. Little House on the Prairie. I was just fascinated by Laura Ingalls Wilder and her family's story of survival and living on the frontier. My family also has a military history, and when I was 12, my mom signed us up and we went on a school bus from our town of Coventry, Connecticut, home of Nathan Hale, Connecticut State Hero. We went to Westover Air Force Base in Massachusetts to greet soldiers and thank them for their service. We were placed on a shuttle bus with a group of Revolutionary War reenactors, and by the end of the journey, we asked if we were interested in learning more. The next thing I knew, I was camping in canvas wall tents, learning the techniques of fire pit cooking, sewing my own clothes, and learning to play the fife and the rudimental bass drum. Purely soaking up the simplicity of life. During my 25 years of community service to this organization, I've marched in over 1,000 miles, entertaining guests in parades, taught hundreds of people about colonial life in America through living history exhibits, and little did I know that these would be the foundation life skills that I would need when I got the call in my heart to pioneer America's last frontier in our majestic state of Alaska. As you can imagine, I went to college and I majored in history and social sciences with an intense focus on American history, where I got my teaching certification. I taught for 12 years, got my master's in education with strength in my pedagogy and understanding of curriculum, and my 6th-year certificate of advanced degree in educational administration, which equipped me for the skills and knowledge to bring my expertise as a teacher and a leader in education. My career path has blessed me with global experiences to build my collective understanding of international modes of education. Through my life's calling, I've been recognized by the state of Connecticut, the International Reading Association, and I've made choices over my 24 years to really broaden my breadth of understanding as well as my depth to prepare me for this moment for district operations and leader. Thank you.
Thank you both. All right, I'm going to start with the first question, and then Katrina's going to ask the next one. And Teresa, you'll be answering the first question first. Let's see, what is your vision for this school district? What is the vision? What is your vision for the 4 schools within it? And I can repeat that because I kind of messed that up. Okay, what is your vision for this school district? What is your vision for the 4 schools within it?
Thank you. When I think about the vision, I first have to think about our strategic plan, the district strategic plan. One of the goals is unity. So first of all, my vision for this district, we have to be unified. And not only unified as schools, but unified as communities. My vision for this district is to work with community leaders, to work with staff, to work with families, work with organizations, tribal organizations, to unify our community. This is a community when I go to different schools, I always feel welcome. When I go out into the communities, I feel welcome. But I have noticed the gap, and it's going to be, as the superintendent, my job to bridge that gap, to close the gap, to bring the communities together. I also have to think about the schools. Yes, I want unification, but I've also acknowledged, appreciate, and have seen the individuality of each school. Each school is unique in itself, from awesome leaders, from awesome community members, from awesome students and staff. So when we are thinking about the vision, my first vision is to unite the communities. My second vision is to unite the schools, to bring them together, have more opportunities to strengthen our programs. When I think about the courses, the programs that are available, and I've read some of the comments, feedbacks from parents and community members for the superintendent search, and oftentimes they feel, you feel, that one of the schools or some of the schools are treated unfairly. And so it is my goal to be able to unite those. And it will be first, as superintendent, to meet with each and every stakeholder, meaning parents, staff members, leaders, organizations, to then have a discussion and find out how we can work together to bridge that gap. My vision for this school, for this district, we are moving forward. Changes are happening throughout the state, and we are on board already with that change. I've been working closely with the leadership team to strengthen their skills as leaders, because it has to start there first. Building the relationship with the board members, communicating expectations and goals with the board members. We are moving forward, as I said, because as a leadership team, we have identified goals, literacy goals, and math goals that we are holding ourselves to. We have a literacy team now that is being led by one of our teachers. And that team will be holding the leadership team accountable for those goals, making sure that within 5 years, all of our students who leave 3rd grade will be on grade level. Within 5 years, our students who are graduating will be able to graduate and be able to read. Within 5 years, our goal is to ensure that students who are struggling, SEL, for example, or students who need SEL support, that we will be sure to bring in programs to support those students. Too many of our students are tired when they come to school. Too many of our students are hungry. Too many of our students are dealing with traumatic things at home, and they come here and we expect so much from them. We need to prepare them. We need to provide them with those opportunities, the skills needed for them to be able to be successful. So our vision of every student graduating, that they will be able to read on grade level, that our third graders, when they're moving on to fourth grade, be able to read, can come to fruition. Continuing the relationship, building that relationship with community members and all other stakeholders. Thank you.
Do you want me to repeat the question? Okay. What is your vision for this school district? What is your vision for the 4 schools within it? You bet.
I also reviewed the stakeholder feedback and soaked in as much information as I could during our wonderful tour of a few of the district schools today. I found that the strategic plan and my personal beliefs have an alignment, and I think it's important to talk about that. Because as a leader, you need to believe in the work that's about to happen, because then you fully can embody a theory of action to put action steps in place to make a vision and a theory come to life. What needs to happen? What are the steps that need in the process to actually make it come to fruition? As a professional educator, my core beliefs that align with the district include advocating a whole child approach to student learning. I always talk about Maslow's before Bloom's. We have to have basic needs met in order to unlock and activate and advance the academics for our students. Maximizing student performance and set high expectations, and integrating family and community within the educational system. As your superintendent, my work would be focused on building trust and relationships, because that is work I would need to do, being new to your community, to deeply understand the institutional knowledge, the history and traditions that exist here within the district, as well as collaboratively planning for the future. Some of the goals and action steps would look like build and improve relationships and partnerships with family and community. Objectives would include positive, ongoing, two-way communication. It's an open door, back and forth. It's a dialogue process with parents and community. Working on strategies to further engage as partners in education, whether that's through technology platforms, social media platforms, organic in roots in person, but that work needs to happen. I'm not sure what that looks like for the community yet, but I would certainly figure that out. Increasing achievement for every student, goal 2, through high quality curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Students in grades K, 1, 2, and 3, reading at or above grade level. Students in grades 3 through 12, writing proficiently, and students beyond in all to be college and career ready upon graduation, because the system as a whole is working together to bring that end goal in mind. Promoting safe environments that are socially, emotionally, and physically conducive to learning, ensuring that students are safe and supported in their learning at school. And what was clear to me is that each school within the system is unique and has its own culture and way of doing business. So I find that the theory of action and the action steps that the different school leaders that I met need to implement that in a personalized manner, because that is what works for their community, their students, and the families that make up that community of learners at each school. So understanding the levers that need to be activated in terms of teacher professional development, what they need. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but we know that people need to advance their skills to hone their craft And so as a district leadership team, we would be putting those resources in place so that leaders could activate the resources that they need to make that happen. So that is what I see from my study here and my glimpse. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, my question, starting with Teresa, and I'll repeat for Carla. What is the process for prioritizing areas of need in the district?
When I first decided I was going to be a principal, and just thinking back on my supervisor, one of the things he always said to me that was so important, he said, even before you start with anything, talk to your staff. And I did. And by talking with my staff, I got to know their needs. I got to know what they wanted. Then I took that information, organized that information, and looked at what those needs were, what were the priorities. And so it would be no different here. My first thing would be to meet with every stakeholder, as I mentioned before. Find out what your needs are. And yes, I did look at your needs already, and I wrote a list and I started organizing those, and which is quite a long list. But when I think about priorities, it's still being able to meet with the stakeholders because I want to know what is important to you. I shared a story earlier when I came in with the staff when we first met, and I told them my first mistake I made, I thought about what the district needed. I came in and I thought about what exactly are the goals. I looked at the strategic plan and I identified what I thought the district needed. To avoid that, to be sure that I hear the voices of each and every person, because your voice matters. The work I do is for you. The work I do is for your children, for our children. And so my process then would be to meet with each stakeholder, organize the information. I love committees. I love collaborating with others. The leadership team, we would then look at it. Or the district personnel, we would look at what was key. Also, putting together a team, look at the task at hand and how can we go about actually making sure or ensuring that we meet those needs. Before that, we would organize what's important, because the first thing we always have to remember, our students, what will have the greatest impact and the best impact on our students. And as a team, we would then select those. And by selecting those, we would then work on creating an action plan. With the action plan, we begin the process. And with that process, teachers are involved because they are the ones who would then be able to ensure that these things are happening. The leadership are involved, the parents are involved, the board members are involved, all community members are involved, organizations. So when I think about the process, when I think about this, I first need to hear from you, to collect data. As I said before, I am a data person. I have learned from my experience, as I said earlier, it's not what I want, it's what you want. My vision can be different from yours. And so as a leader, I need to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, Carla, what is the process for prioritizing areas of need in the district?
The process, in my opinion, as a leader, the process involved is really important, and it happens within the first 100 days of assuming the leadership position. The model to think about is, and I'm going to visit each part of this, it is to think about listen, learn, and then be ready to lead. So you have a timeline of what that looks like to determine what those areas are. Ms. LaVille, she speaks often of data, and I would say as the historian, I would like to listen and look around at what's happening. And so with that listening, I would be thinking about what efficiencies are in place, not in place, how effective are different processes that are happening, what does that actually look like from a systems approach. That's really important to take a look at. I also think it's important to have a standardized set of questions. I often use the format of what should we stop doing, what should we start doing, and what should we continue doing. I think using that basic format in various leadership positions that I've had has been really helpful in kind of sifting out the process, and it also depersonalizes it so people feel free to really share and have the freedom to share. That's really important. Excuse me. With that questionnaire set, all staff, regardless of position, need that opportunity to answer those questions and be heard and listened to, and that happens through a variety of formats, structures, meetings, open door, coffee, snacks, community members as well, the board, how are things going, what's working, what's not working, where do you want to see things go. I also think it's equally as important to talk to the students. I was really blessed today. 2 students remembered me being their principal, and they were excited to see me today. And I was really excited to ask them how they felt about being in your schools. They have wonderful things to say, and I loved hearing that they're flourishing. But actually riding the bus with some kids, I heard today that some kids ride the bus a really long distance, like from Chittenden, for example, to the Kenny Lake School, and what time they get on the bus. And I thought to myself, well, that's fascinating, that is a really long ride. But it's really important. The time starts when you as a parent put your child on the bus. You're trusting that this person is going to take your child to school and then return them to you in better condition, hopefully, than they came to you in the first place. And so talking to kids about what the experience is like for them is equally as important, because ultimately they're receiving the product that we're delivering. I think it's important to take a look through, I do a historical dig when I get to a new place, because I like to see where the decisions were made financially as well. Where are the priorities? Look through the libraries, look in the curriculum rooms, look in the textbook rooms. When is the last time this textbook was used? Was it used? Is it being used? What's happening with the devices that are here? Because are you actually utilizing where you're investing your money? Are you yielding an investment on your return? So I think that's all part of writing an effective transition plan and reporting back out through board meetings and community forums that this is the plan, this is outlining that for everyone to see, very transparent. This is how I'm going to do it, this is what's going to happen, and then I'm going to report back regularly progress and streamline themes that I'm seeing from the listening sessions and make recommendations from my experiences. I've been blessed with different experiences, districts from 1,600 students to 16,000 students. So I think that having that opportunity and seeing how business is done through all different configurations is really valuable. Looking at how districts are funded, they're funded very differently in Connecticut than they're funded in Alaska. And thinking about how that work is done and how the accountability for the service that's delivered is measured are important lessons that are applicable here to help make this district from good to great, as I like to say. So, thank you.
Okay, I've get the next question here, and then we'll go ahead and let you answer first,
All right.
Carla, so we
Okay.
can kind of
Sure.
rotate.
Yep.
What is your style of leadership, and how do you grow leaders?
My style of leadership is very true when you take the Myers-Briggs test, and I was at a professional development conference a couple of times for leaders in education. And what does that look like? So first of all, I'm a strength-based leader, and everyone has strengths that they bring to the team, and it's important to know through relationship building what those strengths are. Maybe they're a schedule guru, maybe they're well connected to community organizations. You never know what it is. But through getting to know people and talking, and taking the time to listen and learn, you're then able to think about those strengths. So when you're trying to solve a problem or move an initiative forward, you know who needs to be at the table. That way, through the collective understanding of everyone there, when you're problem solving, you're getting diversity of thought of what's happening. So I think that that's really important, being a strength-based leader. And in the Myers-Briggs, you call it an arranger, getting the right people in the room. I'm a collaborative person. I'm very team-oriented. I like to do things in teams and together because it's the strength of the team and the diversity of thought, as I mentioned. Because if you think about it through compass points, the northerner has the direction, the southerner is worried about how people are feeling when you're moving an initiative. The westerner are the checklist people, checking it off, making sure we're getting it done. And the easterners are creating outside the box. And together, when all of that comes together, that's when you've really got something great happening. And I think that that's important, being a collaborative person who really values the team process and going through that. So strength-based, arranger, collaborative, teams, and I'm also very strategic. I'm a systems kind of thinker and a strategic thinker. So I like to look at when you're working on forming a theory of action, when you're looking at the strategic plan, and forming the if-then statements to move things along, what are the short-term and long-term gains? And how does that look? Because you want the short-term wins that you're celebrating to lead you ultimately to the long game. And so that's about being a strategic thinker and thinking about how all of the systems can work together to advance initiatives. And I think that's a gift that I have, that I can look big picture and wide, and I can drill down really narrow as well. And I think that's important. So you can look ahead as a captain and see what's out there and say, yeah, that's not the path, right? Or you can also roll up your sleeves, dig down, teach yourself, and jump in that classroom so that you can walk along and say, yep, you know what, you're absolutely right, that was really, really hard. I'm glad you tried it. We gotta remake, because that's just not working. And it's okay to say that. So that's the kind of leader that I am. And the last piece that I think is really important is to have confidence and courage, because decisions have to be made, and after collaborating and doing what's best in the best interest for the district, after taking in all of that information, those decisions, they need to be made. And so I do think it takes courage, compassion, and confidence. Thank you.
I'll repeat the question for you. What is your style of leadership, and how do you grow leaders?
In all my years of education, I always saw myself as a servant leader. I believe in getting into the trenches, and I believe in doing whatever I can to make other people's job easier. So I would be the type to always take the extra work, because I didn't want my teachers to be stressed, overworked, didn't want my leaders to be overworked. And so in my years, I always saw myself as a servant leader. But then working with others, who then became my mentor, saw other leadership styles in me. because when I graduated from college, I always learned a person only has one leadership style. But throughout the years, I was then informed that I have a different leadership style, along with servant leader. So that was collaboration. I love working together. And I think back on Unilaclete, knowing the jobs that I needed to do, the things that needed to be done, and creating the teams to make it work. No one person can do it alone. You need a team. And it's the reason why I focus so much on the leadership team, because my goal is to strengthen them so they can go out and be even stronger leaders. I love working with other people because I need to know their ideas. I need to know what they're thinking, because it's not only the way I think, but I need to know how other people are thinking. They come in with different perspectives, different ideas, which then help us to come up with a solution. Then when I moved to a different district, I was then told by one supervisor, "You are an authentic leader." And he told me, "Look that up." And I did. And I found out that's a person who is honest, a person who has integrity, a person who cares for others, who have compassion for others, and a person who genuinely shows interest in their leaders and in the people they work for. So when I think about the people that I serve, it's important for me to know how they are doing. It's important for me to know that they are okay. Because if our teachers are not doing well, if our students are not doing well, there's no way we will be able to get what we want done or accomplished. And so it is so important for me to know how my teachers, leaders, students, how they are doing, how they're feeling. So when I actually ask someone, "How are you doing?" it's not because I'm just wanting to come up with a conversation. I genuinely care. One of my strengths, I can read people very well. And so when I look at a person, I know that something is wrong. And so I ask, "Are you okay?" And that person knows me well enough to say, "No, I'm not." And we engage in a conversation. I may not be able to solve your problem, but I'll listen. Next, I was told by another supervisor, same place, that I'm transformational because of change. I do believe in change. I believe the only way we can see things happen and to see a district grow and improve is through change. Change doesn't necessarily to remove everything and come up with new things. No, let's look at what we have. We have data, let's use that. We see what is working and what isn't working. We look at what needs to be strengthened and we strengthen those. A transformational leader is also very transparent. Everyone knows what's going on. I worked in a district where I would travel out to one of the sites and they were telling me what was happening. I didn't have a clue what was happening. I don't want my leaders, especially the teachers, anyone else, to hear, especially the board members, to hear something is happening outside from the community. They should all know first. Thank you.
Okay, my bad. Carla, you're gonna go first again, and then we'll give you back on the correct rotation. Sorry. The next question is, there is often a lot of turnover in staffing within our district in recent years. How do you go about building and sustaining quality practices with such turnover? Would you like me to repeat? So, it's really challenging when facing staff turnover, for sure.
And I think the strength lies in a really strong onboarding and orientation program. I think process documentation of the expectations of how, as I like to say, how business is done is really, really, really important. Those days are absolutely crucial. As a teacher in the small district that I grew up in, the work of the district must be done by everyone there. So in year 2, I was always really passionate about meeting new teachers and orienting them to our culture in Coventry and how we do business. I think that that's really important. We took them on a bus tour, we showed them the community, we talked about what was important, we talked about the strategic plan, we talked about how we take care of our students social, emotionally, so that they had an opportunity through really almost like a teacher boot camp of what it meant to serve within our district and serve our community. Having a really strong onboarding program does a couple of things. One, it allows your staff to feel enculturated and understand your expectations on the forefront. They also are able to connect as a cohort of people who are going through similar experiences. Maybe they've come from the lower 48 in tropical climates and have come to the Arctic for the first time, and they need to know what boots to wear, for example. And so I think that that's important to have that professional network, because teaching is a personal craft. It's very individualized. And so to build that camaraderie is really important. As well as we would have guests from all different departments and come meet with board members. They would come, welcome everybody there. These are the people you need to know. And when the staff members would come to our onboarding, it was really important for them to understand this is how we do business. This is how you get help, and this is where you get questions answered. Then having that backup process, where do I go? Recently, when I was teaching, just recently, I started in the middle of the year to help out this school. I didn't even know how to use the copier. Somebody has to teach you that, or how to use the phone. And I know that seems so small, but it's really, really important. It's about the enculturation and the onboarding support and network that you have. That is how that you maintain quality practices, because you process it out, you document it out, and then you instill and you ingrain that. You make sure that that message and that marketing, that it's a through line through all of the mentors that are out in the buildings. So when new staff does come in, there's no question about how business is done. This is how business is done. And that institutional knowledge is passed, it's front-loaded in the forefront, and after boot camp's over, and staff goes out to their individual buildings, that message is still consistently reminded, because you're practicing what you say, you're walking it, you're talking it, and your leaders in your school are embodying all of that practice that you do expect. So that is an excellent way. It's the onboarding and then meeting booster lessons throughout, and you can do that with the leadership model at the school level to make sure that people have the support that they need. And that is challenging to hold on to, but that is, from my experiences, what's worked.
Okay. The question, Teresa, to you is, there is often a lot of turnover in staffing in our district in recent years. How do you go about building and sustaining quality practices with such turnover?
I think about when I first moved to Alaska, and I remember there were so many things happening at once. But one of the things I remember, there were different types of sessions for new people, and for returning people that were so important. And those sessions, of course, helped me to get more or less caught up, because every district you travel to, there are different programs, there are different courses, there are different things that are happening. And as a new teacher, you are already overwhelmed by a new place, new people, and now you have to figure out what you're going to teach the next week. So learning the program, becoming comfortable with what you have to teach. And that helped me so much coming into a district that already prepared me so I would be prepared to teach. I knew the program, I had enough time to dive into it because the trainer helped me to understand what I needed to teach. The trainer also helped me to know what I needed to focus on. Then we had people from the community, because it's a strong Siberian Yupik community, so we had community members, elders who came in, and then of course trained us on certain things that we should expect. How our students are going to respond, how our students use body language to answer, for example, lifting of the eyebrow, and knowing those things. The training, the preparedness at the very beginning helped me to be successful in a place that was unknown to me. The connection that they made, pairing me up with someone who was just happened to come from, who knew my culture, who knew the background. She wasn't from there, but she knew of the area I was from. So pairing me with someone who then kept in contact with me to let me know what I needed, what I should bring, what I shouldn't bring. All those things made a difference to prepare me. Throughout that district, the program got even stronger. It's called Welcome Wagon, where they actually brought in people. All the teachers would all meet in Anchorage, and they had, each teacher paired up with someone, and they would all meet the new teachers in Anchorage, and of course, take them around to shop, to get the foods, all those things. That was so important. It's that connection. And so when new teachers are coming in, we have to think about all those things, because for us, we've been here for a while, so we don't think about those things. And we take it for granted, making the assumption that the new teachers, it's like everywhere else, and it's not. And so, strong professional development, providing, as my colleague said here, providing the opportunity for orientation, providing the opportunity for the new teachers to get caught up. As I was putting the August in-service program together and speaking with Dr. Powers, and one of the things she said, because she listened to the staff, she said, don't forget about the new teachers, because the teachers feel like the new teachers need to know what PBIS is about. And I said, yeah, thank you for that reminder. Because it's a program that's occurring here, and new teachers coming in, if they don't have the overview, if they do not have the background, they have no idea. And so to continue with that sustainability, continue with that growth, continue with our teachers retaining them, or the turn of the new teachers coming in, we just have to make sure they are fully prepared. That they are not left alone out there trying to figure things out. Thank you.
I think Teresa's next, right? Okay, sorry, we got out of sequence there. So, how would you go about gaining a better understanding of this school district's diverse mix of cultures and build trust within the community as a whole?
And I mentioned this before. It's relationship. I am a relationship person. I want people to know who I am, so I have to be vulnerable. I have to let people know who I am, because then they'll let me know who they are. I have to be transparent. I have to be honest. And most of all, I must listen, because everyone out there, as I said before, has a voice, and each person has something important. I cannot come here with my own agenda. I have to listen to what everyone here needs are. And so when I think about the relationship, when I think about the community members, that building that relationship is the most important thing, because it's going to bridge the community to the schools. We want to see more things happening here in the schools. And let me give you an example. Look around you tonight. Knowing that this is a big community, look around you tonight. I know the community wants so much more from the school, so much more from the district. For that to happen, we have to work together. As a superintendent, it's not a one person's job, it's everyone working together, building that relationship. But first, one of the things I said as a superintendent I would like to do is have coffee with the superintendent. When I was in Dillingham, I wanted coffee with the principal, because this way it would give the community members the opportunity to have access to me, to talk to me, to have conversations, to ask questions, and for them to get to know me better. The only way this is going to work is trusting your leaders. I want to believe that with the leadership team, they trust me and I trust them. And they know that I will be honest with them, but very careful in how I am communicating my information. But being accessible, being open, being transparent, being a listener, and I've stressed listening oftentimes because one of the things I have learned, and it's a motto I have, listen more, talk less. Because when you listen, you're hearing people. Because oftentimes people think because they are talking, others are talking, that they're listening. Listen more, talk less. And so with the community, building that trust is the relationship piece. And I'll work hard to make sure I hear your voices, because I serve you, not myself. I'm not here for me. I serve you so our students, our children can be successful. That when they graduate, when they get to 3rd grade, when they leave, that they will be successful out there. Thank you.
I'll repeat that question. How would you go about gaining a better understanding of this school district's diverse mix of cultures and build trust within the community as a whole?
Thank you. I couldn't agree more with what Ms. Lavelle had to say. And to echo that, I'd like to talk about building that under better understanding. Starts with being visible and approachable and welcoming. To know at any time you're going to be heard, you're being listened, the listening is happening, and it's being acknowledged. And that's really, really important, so that open dialogue continues. Building that better understanding through being visible, establishing trust, comes with also exhibiting and demonstrating respect for the diversity of cultures that exist here in the school district and in the community. Welcoming various cultures, culture bearers, elders, community members, needs to be seen as a whole, not separate. It's one community where we're working together. and valuing the cultural traditions that exist to make up who we are. So that's really important to look at it holistically, not separately. And so breaking down that idea is really an important first step. And acknowledging and honoring the diversity that exists so that people understand that the diversity is welcomed and appreciated and valued. Once community members, we'll start with students, once they feel their family, their cultures, and their community way of life is accepted, you'll start to see the partnerships strengthen, because people can see within the school themselves there. They see the community working together in unison. So finding out, as someone new to your community, being visible, being out, attending community events, talking to people, listening, that's where that work begins. Asking questions, figuring out what are all the cultures that are here. What is really important? What are the traditions that are really important? And to be visible and involved. That's how that work begins. And then, as the school leader, bringing together so that it's seen as one entity working together for our greatest investment, which is really our children. The future is, we're working for them. And I think that's how that needs to be done. Thank you.
Okay, the next question starts with Carla. And that is, how does a superintendent gain knowledge about the different schools in the district in order to make decisions? Should a superintendent visit all schools, and if so, how often?
The superintendent needs to visit all schools regularly. Just because they're different sizes doesn't change the importance of being there. Proximity of the district office away from other places also doesn't change the importance that one school has over another, because that's not the case. I think the pure vastness and sizes of communities is something that's really challenging for me to explain to my family back east, who are a family of educators. And I try to explain how large these geographic areas are so that they can begin to conceptualize what I'm talking about. And you can't let the distance trouble you. You've got to just plan accordingly. And I think making a routine schedule, like a routine, to go out to do site visits is also really, really important. The lead teachers and principals, they know you're coming. The work, the focus and the visit should be part of advancing the strategic plan and the mission and the work. And so that's done in a variety of ways. And that's important to see because you are showing that the work is important and that you want to celebrate that along the way. So making a regular routine and schedule so that staff knows you're coming, and part of that visit is going to be a listening session and open door and accessibility. Because sometimes it's hard to, when you really want to just talk to someone versus send an email can seem impersonal. So that's really important to know that that's going to happen and you can look forward to it and plan for that conversation. I also think that it's important to, along with regular visits, I've worked in a couple of districts where this has been really great. And at convocation in the beginning of the year, the superintendent pulls names out of like a jar, and that is people who have volunteered from the district office, including the superintendent, are going to go out and teach a class for an hour. And so the teacher can cash in the coupon and schedule that time for them to come out. And staff love that. They love that. I think it's a really great experience to go and actually be a guest in that classroom and kind of see how things are done. And so I think that's another way to honor and gain firsthand knowledge because you're doing it yourself, as well as regularly scheduled visits and communication. So it's has to be equitable visiting, not just easier because it's close. It has to be planned and then followed through. So that's my response. Thank you.
Okay, Teresa. How does the superintendent gain knowledge about the different schools in the district in order to make decisions? Should a superintendent visit all schools, and if so, how often?
So, I think back on my high school days, and I think back on how often I actually saw the superintendent in the schools. 0. I think back on when I was a teacher in Virginia and how often the superintendent actually visited the schools. 0. I think back on here working in the district in Alaska, and I think back on how often the superintendent visited the schools, at least once a year. So that's an improvement. Oftentimes, as a superintendent, people expect a lot from the superintendent. Their job is different. And so when they get into office, they forget about visiting the schools. And it's the reason why I started there. Because I believe if the superintendents, especially when I think back on the Virgin Islands, the St. Thomas, if the superintendent was coming to the school more often, education would have been different. My peers, my siblings, myself would have had a better education. The presence of the superintendent is important. It is vital to the system. It is vital to the district. When the superintendent only visits once, that's good. At least the superintendent is able to come out and see what's going on. And that made a difference the day I got that visit from the superintendent when I was teaching in Sabunga. It really made my day, and he was able to speak on my behalf for many things. As an assistant superintendent, one of the things I created was a schedule. I had dreams, unrealistic dreams, thinking I would be able to get out to every site every week. Didn't happen, but I still made it a priority to go out there, to visit, especially Solana, that's almost an hour and a half away, but still making my presence known and finding out what their needs are and having conversations with them. And just communicating, talking with the students. Those of you who know me, when I go into the classroom, I am not seated far away. I sit next to the students and I talk. I ask, what are you learning? Because it's important. I need to know what the student is learning. Because as a superintendent, we can make assumptions. As someone said, being in the tower. That's how superintendents have always been seen. But we need to come from that tower and to be visible in the classrooms. If we want to see the progress, if we want to see the changes made, that superintendent who is key to bringing the bridge, building the gap, closing that bridge, bringing everyone together, it is important that the superintendent knows what's going out, what's happening out there in the communities. It's important that the superintendent is out there having conversations with just ordinary people. Because it's not only our staff that's doing the work, it's our community members as well, because they are parents. And so it's important that they also see the superintendent present in the school and be able to communicate. Thank you.
Okay, Teresa, you have first shot at this question here. So how do you balance decisions regarding high standards for students and achieving our profile of a graduate with trauma-informed programs and interventions?
One of the books I got to read, and of course, I took a course in it. It's called Relationship, Responsibility, Respect. That book, of course, changed my entire views and vision of trauma. So when we think about trauma, we think about students, when we think of trauma-informed, which in Alaska, that's what it's called, it's trauma-informed. And when we think of trauma-informed, it's a hit or miss. Some get it, some don't, and the strategies are different. The book I read talked about trauma invested. When we think about our students who have had a lot of trauma, again, that's the reason why I stated I became a true teacher living in Savunga. Because I got to deal with students with extremely high trauma, and I wondered how in the world did they survive, how in the world they were able to do what they did. And as a teacher, it was that connection, building the relationship, talking to them, actually having conversations with situations, real life conversations. So one of the things I introduced when I lived in Savunga was my culture. So I love tea. And one of my students noticed one time that I was, I had my traditional tea and of course natural sugar from my home. And I sat and was drinking the tea and he walked in. Dai is his name, was his name unfortunately. And he, of course, asked, "What are you drinking? It smells good." And I told him what it was. He tasted it, loved it. Another student came and smelled, loved it. And there's a reason why I'm mentioning this. Anyway, eventually, every morning we had tea time before we started our lesson, before teaching actually happened. Because it gave the students the opportunity to talk to me. They actually started sharing more because we were relaxed. And they would talk, and because the class was for about an hour and 10 minutes, that was 10 minutes every day. It made a difference in the students' lives, just having that conversation and talking about ways in which you can deal with life. Me being transparent and sharing with them that I had a traumatic, very, very traumatic childhood, and being able to connect with them and helping them to understand that you can survive this. Our students need the strategies. Trauma-informed will give it here and there, but trauma-invested, all teachers are trained, all students are being given the strategies. When you think about trauma-informed, oftentimes students have to figure it out. They're placed in a separate room, they're a quiet space, and they have to figure it out. But when it's trauma invested, we give them the tools and we teach them how to deal with situations. And that's what I did with my students. I taught them how to deal with situations. Unfortunately, as I said, one student, I ended up losing to suicide. And oftentimes I think about what else could have been done. So when I think about our community, when I think about our students graduating, the world isn't easy out there, we know that. We know our students will be encountering many challenges, but it is up to us to provide them with the strategies, with a strong program or curriculum to help them fight or help them to deal with these traumas that they encounter. They need to know that every single person, every single teacher cares about them, want the best for them, and building that relationship, getting to know the students. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and repeat the question for you.
Thank you.
How do you balance decisions regarding high standards for students and achieving our profile of a graduate with trauma-informed programs and interventions?
Thank you. I think that the balance is found in the profile of a graduate, high expectations, and trauma-informed practices through ensuring that each site has a really strong multi-tiered system of support program in place where you're looking at two things that are always being addressed. You're looking at behaviors, because behaviors are a form of communication, and you're looking at the academics. So when you're looking at that, it's a dynamic piece to look at. You're thinking about, first of all, with trauma-informed practices, first of all, holistically, keep in mind that you're looking for students to value education and to be agents of their own learning. Let's start there. So we really are trying to activate that so there's buy-in to what's happening in the process. Regardless, yes, students come with terrible things that have happened to them, plagued with responsibilities and traumas that no one wishes a child to have. And so when you think about that, students need different levels of support to help work through those particular traumas that they are having or gaps in their social emotional learning and skills, whether it's for themselves or with others. So that starts with making sure that each and every building itself, down to the classroom level, to the person, is creating an environment where the climate and culture is really welcoming and friendly and it's safe. That can be done, it's through relationship building, through student to teacher, often seen through formal type of advisory programs, similar to, as she was mentioning, like having tea. That's a great way to connect. So advisory blocks are great ways to do that so that students see their teachers as people and as mentors, so that you can start having trusting conversations about challenging topics. Positive behavior intervention support programs help do that as well because it's about a mentor-mentee where you use everyone on staff to really build deep quality relationships with the group of students so that you know every kid has a trusted adult in the building. That is really important to maximize their success. It doesn't matter what the role is that they're there, it's how that child sees that adult and that adult is willing to step up and mentor that particular child and help them. So with that, when you've got the Maslow's piece built in, you balance that out with the expectations and the vision of the district, really with evidence-based instructional strategies, really working towards using high-level strategies that really yield high gains. That's really, really important to make sure that that's how that looks and is executed. That's the art of teaching. But what is it that is really being used in this situation to help advance the goals? The instructional arrangement also helps meet, when I think about personalized learning, to help work on the district's plan, as well as the expectations, because that's the art of making that happen. All kids come in, different levels of readiness, different levels of reading, different readiness points to learn. So that teaching point that's happening that day is posted for kids to learn, and students have set some goals for themselves as learners. Where am I in working towards that goal? right? Everybody's at different levels, we're not all the same, but how am I doing that? And then students reflecting on that learning journey and that lesson and that progress really helps to build that. So I think valuing education, knowing that it's safe, that is how those three things really come together to create a really careful balance. You're looking at balancing the behaviors, and you're also looking at the academics. The supports that you have in place, based on different tiers and readiness levels of the students, is the system's response to help activate where students are, to help meet their needs and advance everything along. And so I find that having a responsive, multi-tiered system of support really does help that happen. And that's how it's all balanced, because not every kid needs all of this in one area or this particular support in a different area. So it's a dynamic process. Thank you.
Okay, we are 5 minutes behind, so we have time for one more question or the wrap up? Do you all have time for one more question, the last question?
Yes.
Okay. All right, the last question is to Carla. As a superintendent, how do you create a positive educational environment and fashion a passion for learning among students and staff?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Certainly.
Thank you.
As a superintendent, how do you create a positive educational environment and fashion a passion for learning among students and staff?
Everybody brings their whole self to the workplace and to school every day. And I think what I've learned through leadership is the behavior and enthusiasm that happens in the school. One of the greatest predictors of achievement that's going to happen in that building is what your principal is doing. It's not necessarily the teachers, it's what the principal is doing, the indicators of school success. That's really, really important in the school leader. So when you think about the superintendent role, you got to think about exactly that. That role is it's your coach, it's your icon. What do you want for the whole entire district? And so you bring your whole person in and you think about being positive. It's who you are. You're out there, you're smiling, you are passionate about what you're doing every single day. You live, eat, breathe school. That is just how it works. It's hard. We spent a lot of time talking today about how it's hard to turn it off. It just keeps going. And so it becomes everything that you do. My husband often tells me, could you just stop talking about school? Really, let's stop talking about school. We talk about anything else except school. He's not an educator. And so I'm like, oh, am I talking about school again? Right? Because that is what you do. It's who you are. You model it. It goes all the way down through a distributed leadership model. The team that you're working with, from students, the teachers, all the way around, it's who you are. It's how you behave. It's how you talk. It's how you speak. It's are you approachable. It's what happens. That's really, really important. And so you need to model, 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 model. That is the bottom line. If you're upbeat, your attitude is positive, you're naturally passionate about everything that you're doing, you're always talking about school, you are school, it's contagious. It's just what happens. And so I feel as the ultimate leader, that is the key that has to happen every day, all the time. I often learned in Disney, got to take students there on a high school band trip, and it was so great. The kids got to play the score for a Disney movie. They got to beat the soundtrack. And the Disney conductor came out and he said to the kids, Now listen, he told me the story and he said, this is what happens with the Disney performers. Remember, kids, it's first time, every time. That's the Disney motto. And I think that's true in this position. It's first time, every time. You open the door, you're out on the floor. It is who you are. You live it, breathe it, see it. It's the passion. You are positive because education unlocks doors. I know it did for me. Thank you.
Okay, Teresa, as a superintendent, how do you create a positive educational environment and fashion a passion for learning among students and staff?
I just want to second what Ms. Carla said. Role model. As a superintendent, you must be that role model. You have to be able to live it, not only say it, but live it. And when you are out there, you are representing the district. You are the district. And so it is very important, whether you're in school, out of school, to continue to be that role model. Because believe it or not, people are watching. The expectation. So if, as a superintendent, you have high expectations for yourself, you have high expectations for your leaders, for your staff, guess what? They too will mimic the same thing and become role models. Because it's so important. As I said, we cannot do it alone. It's important that everyone represents and be that example for students. Because most of all, that's who's watching us. But the belief, from the beginning, since I've stepped foot here, I believe in the changes. I believe in what can happen here. I believe our students can do it. When I have staff, leaders like Shauna, like Jason, and others, how they believe in their schools, Alicia, that belief in the school, Miss Jackson, Mark Proch, their belief, because they have such a strong belief, they have such high expectations, and therefore they become those role models for their students. And so, having that belief, when I walk into the schools, even though I'm stressed, or I have so much on my plate, but the students are not going to see it. My staff will not see it. The team, sometimes it's, are you okay? We know you have a lot. I'm fine. Sometimes I step aside and then have a conversation with one of them or a couple of them. But the whole point is, when we are out there, we become the face of the district. We are the face of the district. And it is so important that our students see us as such. They see us. They want to be us. They want to be like us. Carrying themselves a certain way because they're proud. And that's the last piece. When you are proud of the people who work for you, when you are proud of the people you serve, when you're proud of your students, big or little, it doesn't matter. So being a role model, having high expectations, belief in yourself, in the people you serve, in the students, your staff, and that proudness. Thank you.
You might want to turn off your mic there. So, you've heard our candidates. We're asking you if you have any comments or things you want to pass to the board, please fill it out or catch one of the board members on the way out. We really do need to hear your voice. You heard the word community a whole lot, and that's you guys. So maybe talk to folks that are interested in this process and see if they have any opinions on this. The board is really trying to get a full 360 from every area to try to understand where the community is at in this decision. It's one that has taken us a lot of time, and we haven't got there yet. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about this at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I got to shout out to the board. They have pulled together. They've done an amazing job. There's been a lot of hours with this superintendent search. So I know it's half the room right now is the board, but thank you. So we felt it best that the candidates have the last word. So we'll let them do that. I did promise Misty, obviously we borrowed Drama Club's props. So I promised Misty that I'd let you guys know that there's a play coming up in April. So otherwise, I don't think we could have used her couches and stuff. So it's April 13, 14, and 17. Right girl, wrong guy. So now if she asks you, I told you. And we'll let these fine women here have a chance to have the last word. It's going to be 3 minutes. And we're going to start with you, Teresa. And then we'll move on to you.
Thank you.
Want to quickly say thank you very much again for this opportunity, the support of the board members, the support of the district staff, the support of my husband. And so I am very grateful, first of all, for everyone being here. Everyone who has spoken to me know my passion, my drive, know what gets me up every single morning. And I just want to end with this. I make reference to Savunga often because I became a teacher then. I remember when it was my last year, and of course, in teaching, I, working hard, motivating students, doing everything I could. And there was this one student who wouldn't really say much to me, and I tried everything. Communicated with parents, everything, and he would do the work. So that was a great thing. He was doing the work. But I couldn't get him to actually have a conversation with me. And he participated in the tea time, but he wasn't one of those that would speak. Anyway, it was time for me to leave Savunga. It was the last day of school, and this gentleman waited for everyone to leave. Then he came to me, and he said, then I was Davis. He said, Miss Davis, we've had some fun teachers. They were fun. But you were the only teacher who cared about us and wanted more for us. I share this story with you because that's what drives me every day. I think about students like him when I thought I wasn't reaching him, and I was. He was just quiet and taking it all in, but he saw that I cared, and that's how I feel about every single person that I work with here. And that's how I feel about our students. And I believe I'm in a place where every single person who works with students daily, and even those who are not working with students daily, who are in the district office doing the other part of the job, that trust me, no teacher really wants to do, that they care about their students. And that's why I am here. And I will remain here regardless of the outcome. I am dedicated to this school. I'm dedicated to you. I'm dedicated to your community. I am here for you, not for me. And my husband knows this. He lives in Wasilla, and I drive out often enough to spend time with him because I cannot forget that piece. But I'm here to serve you.
I was thinking about different responses and reflecting on this process, and I was thinking about how it's important to talk about growing leaders and the distributed leadership model, one that I feel passionate about. And in the spirit of the Iditarod, I think it's important to think about key takeaways that I've learned about dog mushing since I've been here, and I find them inspiring and I'd like to share the closing comments with you this evening. Perhaps one of the most powerful lessons is really about life itself. The team of dogs, they're born and bred to pull the sled. It's a passion that's ingrained in their DNA. When they know it's their turn to be harnessed, their eyes light up, their ears perk. and they're ready to burst out of those harnesses with enthusiasm. It's like teachers on the first day of school. Each dog has a distinct position on the team, and each one knows their role. On each team, there's 2 lead dogs that are skilled at obeying the directional commands and staying on the trail. And behind them are point dogs that assist and back up the leaders. Directly in front of the sled are the wheel dogs, and they keep the sled on the trail. In between on the team are the dogs that bring the power and the endurance to keep that sled going. And the success of that team depends on each dog using its unique skill in concert with the others. While on the trail, the dog is in the zone. They are focused on completing their role. And watching a sled dog team at work is where the value of using individual strengths is really important. To support the group efforts and the gifts of others are equally as important, even if they're different from our own. This is the value of diversity of thought in a learning organization. The strengths foster creative thinking, solution-generated problem solving, and make the learning experience rich in our classrooms. Every single person in our learning community plays a pivotal role on the team because we know our positions and we execute with precision and passion. We must be working in unison with endurance, passion, and strength to complete the race. Leadership, it's about trust. Trust that members will trust their team members, that will trust the leaders in the face of adversity, because they trust the leaders are never going to lead them into danger or put them in harm's way. And that trust is built from relationships, listening, seeking, acting on feedback, showing appreciation, empowering the team by trusting them first, coaching, consistency, and creating an inclusive culture. A place where everyone feels valued and trusts their leader and understands their experiences because they know what it's like to be in their shoes. The second important lesson comes from observing dogs that are not running with the team due to injury. You can't help but notice their coats are dull, their eyes have grown, have lost their sparkle. But with patience, time, and healing, those athletes are going to rejoin the team and the sparkle is going to regain in their eyes. That's where the next lesson comes in. We all have a place where we too come to life, where we feel like we're doing what we were born to do. Of course, we all have places in life, and it's important to remember. But I hope that this image inspires you to live your fullest potential and never let your eyes grow dull. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, folks. Well, you guys
Feel free to
made
bring
this.
the
Good job.
cards down or hand them off to anyone.
Yeah, thank you. You guys did great.